everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Part of Your Broadway World podcast. Today we have another special guest. We've had this on on our second season of the Part of Your Broadway World podcast to talk about her to talk about her time at Disney, and she's going to come back and talk to us again. Please welcome Ashley. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I think I'm good.
Sorry, I'm I'm a minute or too late. I'm just fighting with this because since this lights up, I have this remote. This doesn't work anymore.
Oh gosh.
And I changed the batteries, still doesn't work, so I don't know what's happening.
That's frustrating. I had a few things that I got, like I actually got it from Five Below and I used it once and then they all busted and I was like, that was a waste of money.
I don't know if like a wire's loose or
Hopefully it's just like the sensor. Maybe you could just
change the sensor.
Yeah. I don't even know if you could do that.
I don't know. So anyway, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Made it through Monday. So
Yeah. I mean, that's all your life. Things were happening and
if you can even imagine, more things happened after. So
really.
yeah, it's just life. And I'm pretty sure I told Mike every time I jump on live, you are always in my lives. You are always
Yeah.
in them. I told him I feel like it's like somebody is just jumping into my route. It's like the same person every time and they're reporting it because I either get a violation or a restriction or something. And I'm just like, there's literally no reason for this.
Well, you know, it's not me.
I know. It is not right. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
No, I definitely know it's not you, but it's just like I just feel like one of my friends actually, her account, she was banned from lives today. So I don't know. It's just the fun of the game, isn't it?
TikTok is TikToking.
It's moody.
Yeah. My main account got like a month or so ago got like 2 violations, like 2 strikes.
It's like they're handing them out like candy, and I'm like, but like, why?
For
Apparently, what I was talking about today made people feel uncomfortable.
yeah.
That was what the restriction that I got today. Did you feel uncomfortable? I am sorry if you felt uncomfortable about me talking about
No,
Etsy.
it's Etsy.
I know, like who? What? It was just like that's what the thing said. I took a screenshot. I sent it to Mike, and I was like, "What is happening in my life right now? Like, what is going on? The universe just does not want me to go live."
I remember you said that. I was like, huh? What?
I literally can't even more. I
I
just can't.
can't.
I just can't. It's okay. I'm gonna still do it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I lose my account, it's a sign I'm not supposed to be on TikTok anymore.
Yeah. There are other platforms.
Yeah.
Not as fun.
Or as like honestly easy to make money, but that's cool.
Yeah. 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 And we're lobbying to keep TikTok and keep
Are
it from
we?
getting banned.
Yeah, are we now? I don't know about that. Maybe I'm like, I'm so like petty. I'm just like, yeah, they deserve it. Like
Oh my god.
so petty. I'm just like, no, they deserve it. It's fine.
Gosh. So so when I had reached out to you again for getting another interview, it was on another one of your lives, and you were talking about everything that happened to you while you were working for the company. And I was like, that's actually a good idea to do with a podcast episode, talking shit about everything that happened
Yeah.
and airing out the dirt.
Yeah. And like I love Disney, right? Like I have Mickey Mouse back there. I take my kid every single weekend. We love it. But there are aspects of it that just are infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people that work there now and they have great experiences and they have great leaders and they love their job. But man, when you have a bad like leader and a bad department, I mean, that can happen anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to have like HR employee relations, and everybody else underneath the sun back a manager who has a history of laying off and firing either working mothers, single working mothers too, or pregnant women, there's a problem. And that was my experience. I was working underneath a leader who she treated people, and this was what I was told from other like higher ups on like in that department, okay? I was told that she views people how they are in the company. So like I was an intern when I started out on her team. Because I was an intern, I never stopped being an intern to her even when I wasn't anymore. So there's that. If you're a manager, she'll treat you like that in real life. That is just her view. Like your worth in life is what your job title is underneath her, basically. And that like she also was very much like I don't know how to say it. Like I don't know how to say it nicely. Not like she deserves nice, but like the fact that she was like enabled to fire me for being pregnant and high risk pregnancy. She was enabled to. They allowed her to. And I still can't believe it. I did go to the government and I let them know what was going on. And I went to labor relations. I spoke to everybody. And even though the government sided with me and said that I had a case, the only thing that I could do at that point was sue them. And I chose not to. I decided to just, I mean, would they contacted me when my second born was 3 months old. It would have been in December. So September, October, November, December. Yeah. So he was 3 months old. That was when this finally ended. And I was originally like fired for being pregnant in August 2021. And it just came to like a resolution in December. And when the government came out and they reached back, because I had like a private investigator through the government that was like doing all this stuff and talking to all these people. And he said, wow, like he agreed with me and I had a case. There was nothing they could really do because they didn't want to tick off like their largest employer in Florida. So I was fired finally, like finally. They originally fired me, but when I was like, what you're doing is against the law. And then I started like pulling out all the documents. So originally it was really crazy because of COVID, right? Like they had laid off a bunch of people. And I guess the thing that's so frustrating, okay? Because like then they're like, well, COVID, well, COVID, well, COVID. Yeah, but once you start talking about your personal experience, like, yeah, well, COVID, but like, well, no, 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 no. It's not about you. It's about COVID for us. I was high risk pregnancy, okay? I had an undiagnosed autoimmune disorder too at the time. So that's why like everything was going so badly. And my son, which we now know, has two rare diseases. So all of that was going on, but no one really knew what was going on with my pregnancy. And my doctor said like, because he was asking about my working situation and I told him like I was still furloughed. And he was like, okay, well, if anything happens there, let me know because you cannot return to the office because where you go, your baby goes, and we don't know what's going on with him right now. So like, okay, I was due in October. And like my manager knew I was pregnant too. Okay. So like she was very aware that I was pregnant. And I was due in October and they called me at the end of August. So I had less than 2 months left in my pregnancy, less than 2 months. And she texted me on a Thursday saying like, oh, I need to call you tomorrow or whatever, like super weird. And I knew it was coming. Okay. So she called me on Friday and it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. So like everything was about to shut down. And she said, oh, you have to return to work on Monday or you don't have a job. Gave me absolutely no time to like even get my life in order. Like, regardless of like my pregnancy or anything like that, like just no regard for like having like what if I wasn't in town? Or like what if I had another job that I had been working that I had now quit because you're telling me I have to come back to work? Like it was just like there was no like timing of it to where it
Right.
would be conducive for anybody. And that
Right.
was just true for anybody that was furloughed and being recalled. You had to return to work under their whatever they said. If
Mm,
you said, "Oh, I can't do this," there was like no negotiating it because they were like, "Well, you should be happy you had a job," right? Which
yeah.
is for the most part, yeah. But I was when before I was furloughed, I was actually working 50 plus hours a week. And when they recalled me, they dropped my hours to 20. So I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, no, like you can't do that." So I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, is there any way to work remote? Is there any way to work remotely through the duration of my pregnancy because I'm high risk?" And they said, "Absolutely not. If you do not return to work on Monday, you're fired." And I was like, "What?" like what? So then I reached out to my doctor, and my doctor was like, "Absolutely not. Under no circumstances can you do that. Here's a note." So I had a note from the doctor, and I was like, okay, like this is fine. Meanwhile, um, there was a person that was working on the team, and she had been working remotely for 4 years. So it wasn't like they never had anybody on the team working remotely. We were all working remotely before Disney shut down. But like there was a person on the team who had been working remotely for 4 years, and they were saying that it was against company policy for anybody to be working remotely. And I know people right now that are still working remotely. In fact, somebody on that team moved to Maryland and is working remotely still. He actually like worked remotely in a different state for 3 years. So it's like they just wanted me to quit.
That's what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
Because that just sounds a little fishy.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sounds fishy.
Yeah. Especially because like she knew I was pregnant. And when they did layoffs on that team, the only people they laid off were the working mothers. That's it.
And
And then they rehired those roles with younger women who were either like not married or like recently married and childless, essentially.
that to me just sounds very anti motherhood.
Yeah. And the government agreed with me, but there was nothing they could do. They said. And I will say, like, nothing against her. She can live her life however she wants. She's in her 50s and she has cats. That's fine. I'm not bashing that. But the fact that every single working mother on her team, she like laid off. And then when she found out that I was pregnant, like forced me off the team. Like that was just so messed up. And like so much happened in between that too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I went to employee relations, I went to labor relations, I was talking to them and telling them what was going on. And then like so I was interviewing for other jobs internally at the company. And I was in the final picks for two different manager jobs. And my former manager, the guy, the only male on the team that is working remotely in Maryland, okay?
Mm.
He viewed my LinkedIn profile after I interviewed for both of those jobs. And then the next day, I got rejected.
Okay, that
They blacklisted me. And I will say, the private investigator that I was working with, through the government, this is what they did all this. I was just like telling them what happened, and like I just
yeah.
I you know what I mean? Like I didn't want to be blacklisted. And then they blacklisted me from even trying to just get a job internally.
Mm-hmm.
So like the main point of me, like at that point, I was like, well, I'm never going to work for this team again. I just want to make sure that like I can be hired again. And the fact that they did that to me was just like he clearly spoke badly about me to the hiring managers, so they wouldn't hire me. Because how like you know what I mean? Like it was, and I'm not saying that the other person that they interviewed wasn't like a good candidate or anything like that, but the fact that like I had this really good interview and then like he viewed my profile and the next day I got rejected from it. It was just so fishy. Like,
It's not even just that, but it's just like it's not even like if you were like if like if the other person was like right for like kind of bit better for a job. it's the fact that they blacklisted you.
Yeah, they did. They did. My private investigator straight up said that they did. And he was working to make sure that they weren't going to do that. But like, who's to say they didn't? Who's to say they took that away?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no way to say that they took that away. If I applied to a different job right now, I mean, probably still get declined. Like,
Right.
there's no way to know, you know?
Because
I just have to trust. That's the other thing. I have to trust all these people who have done me badly already.
right. And like you said, it would be in one thing if they thought, oh, well, this other person would be a bit better for the job. But the fact that they were going to hire you, looked at your profile, and then took it away
Hmm.
is what
Yeah.
gets me kind of angry because I we've known each other for like a year or two
Yeah.
now, and just knowing you for 2 years, I know that you would have been so great at that job.
Oh, thank you. And it was like social media, like what I did, like what my master's degree is in, like content creation, like what I do right now. Like what am I doing, you know? So,
Right. And I
and
mean,
it's just, I don't know. It's hard not to be like bitter about it. And I do have moments where I am increasingly like mad about it. And so, okay, I might cry about this. This is a good cry though. Okay. A good cry, bad cry, bittersweet cry. I don't know. But I know like you know a lot about my son, right?
yeah,
And I have two little boys. I'm gonna cry, my goodness. Maximus is just amazing. And there's a lot of feelings and emotions, and I'm gonna talk through kind of just like let it all out how I'm feeling right now, if that's cool.
yeah, it's fine.
Okay. The fact that like I was basically fired from my dream job because of my boy is angering, right? Like it's infuriating that I
It's
was essentially fired because of
discrimination.
him, you
It's
know?
discrimination.
Yeah, it is. Like I was a protected class and they still, and that's the thing too. It's not the company that was the problem. Okay. I
Yeah.
want to say that. It wasn't the company that was the problem. It was the manager that I worked under that was the problem.
Hmm.
And then everybody after that that enabled her behavior.
Right.
Because I truthfully feel like if the people that were looking at this particular case, I also worked at Disney. I worked there for 10 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's not like I worked there for 10
Yeah.
years. Like
Right.
I moved cross country for it. Let's see. I moved from Michigan to Florida, from Florida to California, and from California back to Florida. How many times is that across country for a company? When like I didn't get paid to move, I paid out of my own pocket to work at this place because I love it. I have to believe that if the right people saw this and didn't know her and didn't enable her, they would have sided with me and things would have been very, very different.
Hmm.
Um, Especially because like the other people on the team that were also let go, or there was, I don't want to tell her story. That's not my story to tell. And I don't want to reveal any of her information, but like she was also like, she was recalled and had to quit because they wouldn't work with her and her childcare issues. So it's like, I have to look at those situations and I have to see because she's not clearly not a compassionate person. Like I have to feel that way. She's never shown that to me in the year and a half that I knew her.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that like I don't know, it's just okay. Anyways, so the fact that I was basically like fired from this job because of my child makes me so angry. And that job worked with animals. Animal Kingdom was always my favorite park. I always knew that when I went into communications, I wanted to do something with conservation because like I was not going to be an animal keeper, right? Like that's not my forte. But like I wanted to work with animals. So I since this all happened, I have had a really hard time going to Animal Kingdom. And gosh, I've had a really hard time going to Animal Kingdom, and I've had a really hard time like doing anything surrounding animals and Animal Kingdom, whatever it is. But my son is obsessed with safari animals specifically right now. He is limited in speech because he's autistic. And he like knows African animals. Like we took him to Animal Kingdom on the 4th of July And he, like the safari ride, we had to ride twice and we could have ridden it all day long,
Mm.
like all day long. He was just the happiest little guy. He was like yelling out all the animal names and pointing at them on like the little guide card. He even said Ancoli cattle. Okay. He can't say like most words, like, and he said Ancoli cattle. Like he was like so like into it. And ostrich, like these are like he knew giraffe and he knew hippopotamus because hippopotamus is his favorite animal. And just seeing it through his eyes and walking through, like we even rode the train to Conservation Station, right? Rafiki's Planet Watch.
Mm.
And that's where my office was. Um, and I haven't been able to be back there since this all happened because I was just so hurt. You know, I
Right.
was so hurt because like this, I moved cross country so many times for this place. I've missed weddings, I've missed birthdays, I've missed funerals, and they just kicked me to the curb because I needed to not return to work for the duration of my pregnancy, which was
Mm.
8 weeks. And I had Max 4 weeks early. So it was really only 4 weeks that I needed to work remotely. And then I would have gone on maternity leave.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't grant me that. Or they could have just not even recalled me. They didn't need me for 2 years almost. They didn't need me for a year and a half, 2 years. And then they needed me right at the end of my pregnancy. They could have just not recalled me because she hadn't put it in the system yet. You know what I mean? Like she
Yeah.
didn't put it in the system yet. If she would have just given me time, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
if they wouldn't even have to do maternity leave. They could have just like had me come back. Like they could have been like, "Oh, hey, okay, it's fine. Just, text us when you can return to work and we will work with you on that one." But
Mm.
no, after what, 589 days or something crazy like that, they decided that I had to come back to work in 2 days and risk my life and my child's life. And again, like Maximus has, and I share this out everywhere because when you have a rare disease, you have to share it out to find people that will help you. It's not like, other, like he has two rare diseases. I have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like I could have lost him if I returned to work and got COVID. Like I could have, even though I was fully vaccinated at that time, pregnant women were at higher risk of getting COVID, even vaccinated or not vaccinated, and like losing their child from it.
Mm-hmm.
I was not about to risk that. So it's just I have to so anyways, it's nice now that like I still have like bitter feelings about it, but I tried to separate her from the company even though she works there. I have to think that if people actually knew what happened in this situation, the person that was let go would not have been me.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they actually finally let me go, the director called me and these are his exact words. He says, "It's time, you are now purged from the company." I
That
literally was just so floored by that. Like, how insensitive. Like, how insensitive. And then he was like, "Oh," well," he was like, he's like, "Oh, how you been?" I'm like, "Good. Like, I just had another baby." And he's like, "Oh, wow." I was like, "Yeah, like, it's been that long, dude." But like the fact that he said it like that, I was just like, "What?" Like, I hope he doesn't talk to like other people like this because that was terrible. He hung up and I literally just sat in the room and I sobbed for a good 5 minutes before I pulled myself out together and went back out and was a mom. I'm thankful Mike was home that day because I don't think I could have gotten through the day because that was terrible. Like there are a million different ways you could have said it, but to say you were purged from the company, like, oh, that was awful.
that's just wild to me.
Yeah.
To have the nerve to say those words to somebody
Yeah.
and not even think about it and just not even care.
It's crazy too, like, so when COVID started happening, right? So, and like people were starting to, so like there were like the interns that were there. I was a specialist at the time. So, I was lucky enough to where like I had just went from intern status to specialist status.
Mhm.
So, had that not happened beforehand, I would have been fired. And like my husband and I were in the process of buying a house and clearly thinking about starting a family. And had I been fired from that job then, like
Mhm.
when COVID first started happening, that would have been devastating. We actually closed on our house the day the furlough was announced. So it was like a lot. It's a lot. But I remember there was this girl that was an intern on one of the animal science and environment teams. And she had just gotten out of the Navy, and she wanted to work with animals. So she went back to school to do that. And her boyfriend or no, fiance were going to buy a house, and he was also in the Navy. So he was deployed and she was like an intern. And her dog just had surgery and was like not doing well. And I remember my leader called me and she was telling me that she was being like let go. Like they were like eliminating her job. And
Mhm.
I was so upset for and like the way she was like, yeah, we're just eliminating her job. So it's just easier for us to do that because of COVID and everything. Like that's exactly
Mhm.
how she said it to me. Like just so like nonchalant. And I'm like feeling this girl's emotions, like knowing her as a person and seeing her as a human and recognizing that like this is devastating for her. Like this is devastating. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awful. Like I feel so bad for her. And then her response to me was, she's young, she'll bounce back. And I was like, okay, first off, like even if she is young, that's still devastating. Second off,
Yeah.
I don't think she was as young as she thought she was. Because like for me, I was an older intern. I went back and got my master's degree so I could do internships like that. And like that, and that is a thing. She was so tone deaf and insensitive to any other person's experience that I don't understand how she is a senior manager. Because there has to be some like you have like, and I get it, like you have to like kind of like be hard sometimes because you have to make these hard decisions, you have to do these hard things. But it just shows that like if you're on her team, like there's no compassion.
Mhm.
And there has to be some kind of compassion for your team. And clearly there was nothing.
Just the way that like with everything that you've said of like how they talk to people, it's just unbelievable and
Yeah.
just so unprofessional and just
Yeah.
oh my
Sometimes
God.
I don't like to say the word. I don't like to say like I get triggered by, but listen, sometimes I get triggered because like her emails were so like, and I get like if you have like a personal relationships
Right.
with somebody, you don't have to always be totally professional, right? I get it. But like her emails were so like texty. Like it was like she was sending me a text. And like there would be this like big project that had to be done or something. And then it would just be like, thanks, but it would be like THX. I don't know. It was just like, I remember like, like, especially like in my first internship when I was working public affairs at Disneyland, like it
Mhm.
didn't matter who you were emailing, you were professional. You know what I mean? Like you didn't say stuff like that because you don't know who's going to have eyes on it at some point. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so, but that's just how she was. Like and I'll tell you, like, I try to have respect for everybody. I have no respect for that woman. None. If I ever saw her, like, it was so weird. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. The other day, I was on Facebook and I was like, she came up on my suggested friends. And I was like, no, no,
That's weird.
no,
That's a
I'm
little
good.
weird. That's a little
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. But what really bothered me the most was I went through all the right channels to keep my job, but also keep my son. Like my doctor is telling me that if I go into work and I were to get COVID, my son is not going to make it because I was pregnant. And again, he has two rare diseases. He is in and out of the doctors. Well, he was in and out of the hospital when he was a little baby, and now he's in and out of the doctors all the time. He still has significant health issues. We still have doctors on speed dial. Like I would have lost my child if I would have gone into the office. My doctor said that to me. Even
Right.
the risk of that living in my brain, what would I have done? You know what I mean? Like, what would they
Right.
have done? if I would have gone into the office, contracted COVID from somebody, ended up in the hospital, potentially lost my son, what would they have done for me? And getting fired, honestly, was a blessing in disguise, but
Yep,
it should not have happened the way that it did.
right. And I was about to say that, like, it sucks, yes, but in a way, it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I worked so hard to get that job.
Yeah.
I interviewed for it when I was getting my bachelor's degree, and I didn't get it. And like I didn't get the internship. And I was devastated, and I worked my butt off to get that particular internship. So it was hard. Um, yeah, but the fact that like that internship is the one that destroyed my career is what, like, not because like it was an internship that turned into a job, right?
Right.
And the fact that it literally destroyed my career before it really even got off the ground was really hard for me to grasp because I fully anticipated on going back to work after I had Max. I did. I mean, I love Disney so much. I named my freaking kid Maximus. I mean, come on. Like,
Right.
so I did fully intend on going back to work. I never intended on being a stay-at-home mom. But with his health issues and him being autistic and now with his little brother too, like I I clearly was supposed to stay home. But I just I kind of wish the decision would have been mine and I wish it wouldn't have been made for me. Especially in such like a kind of like emotionally traumatic way.
That's what I was gonna point out. Like, just like like that could have had like you were gonna make that probably that decision on your own of like being a stay-at-home mother.
Yeah.
But for it to happen the way that it did and with how brutal it kind of was,
Yes.
that's
Like
not an experience you want to have.
truthfully, honestly, what would have happened is because I had Max. So I was doing, okay, so they called me at the end of August. I had Maximus September 23rd, and I was supposed to have him in October. So I had him in September. Like it was only 4 weeks, if that. And like, if when he was born, he was so small. He was 4 pounds. Like he was tiny. And then
Mhm.
at 4 months is when I started noticing like the first rare disease, which is when I would have returned to work. So like, I mean, I literally probably would not have been able to,
Right.
because like when I was going back and all this stuff, like he was signed up for daycare. Like we had daycare secured, and then like the Friday beforehand, his doctor was like, I can't sign this release because we don't know what's going on. So I would not have had childcare. I would not have been able to go back to work, So it's like if literally all of this stuff could have just been avoided if they weren't crap people,
Right.
you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly.
So I don't know. Like I probably wouldn't have even gone back to work and then they would have just been done with me anyways. So I don't
Right.
know.
But at least that would have been your choice.
Yes. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
took that choice away from you when they fired you.
Yeah, they did. And I'm still $30,000 in debt for my master's degree that I went back to get that stupid job for, you know? Oh well. But I'm just really thankful that like Max has like healed that part of me,
Right.
because like now I can't wait to go back to Animal Kingdom and take him on the
Mhm.
safari and show him all the animals. And that's the other cool thing because of that job, I know all these fun facts about the animals. So I'm I just wish I just wish a million different things would have happened. Especially like I just wish a million different things would have happened.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But at the end of the day, I have to sit here because I will. Okay, so I know you talked about a certain manager with Patrick before.
Mhm.
And he that manager royally screwed me over when I was in entertainment because I was trying to leave entertainment and stuff, and he like didn't fill out a form for me to be able to transfer in time. And I
Mhm.
was on vacation. Like I was celebrating my engagement with my now husband, at Disneyland. And I got an email saying that I was not in consideration for it. And I asked them what happened. And they said that they never received the form from that manager. And so when I reached out to him, I was like, what happened? He's like, oh, I just wanted to talk to you about it. I'm like, there was no time. Like, I'm like, you know me, like we talk all the time. Like he was like the venue owner, you know? So it was just really devastating. And he did a lot of other things too, to a lot of other people. And I remember sitting there thinking like, okay, I just have to hope that someday all of this will catch up to him. And I ended up leaving Disney for about 4 months to do an internship with Universal, which was amazing. And that's what helped me get my internship at Disneyland. So I moved out to California. And I remember I got a message from somebody. I actually was on my lunch break at Disney, and I got a message from somebody, and they were like, "Oh, hey, guess who was fired?" And I was like, "What? Like, what?" And it was because like I guess he pulled like somebody into a bathroom to give them like feedback or something, and then he was like terrible to her, or I don't know. And she walked out in tears, and there were like all of these like witness statements that were written about him. So they eventually were like, nope, cut ties. So I
Right.
was like, wow. So in my brain, I just have to think at some point if this is gonna happen, not maybe not fired or anything. That's the thing. I don't want her to get fired.
Right.
Well, no, I don't want her to get
The way you just stopped and thought about it, like, well, do I? Yeah. There.
no, I don't want her to get fired. But she does need some type of like, first off, she needs to be retrained on like the company's policies.
Yeah.
I don't expect her to understand the law. Um, but if someone's coming to you and saying, okay, what you're saying is inaccurate and against the law, that is not the time to double down. That is the time to like, okay, well, let's figure this out together type deal. Um, and then I also feel like she just needs some like deep compassion training.
That's what I was about to say too, is like the fact that she doubled down, that's what makes me feel like she's immature in in that sense.
Yeah.
The fact that you double down
Yeah,
on something
absolutely. Absolutely. And I
like
mean,
that.
I will say, I think immature is a perfect way to describe her, just from my experience with her. Um, and that's fine. That's fine. Not everybody has to act a certain way or be professional. But at the same time, if you're a senior manager at a very large company, um, you do need to have some type of professionalism sitting there.
Yeah.
And even if your job is 100% your life, that's fine too. But
Yeah.
you do need to have like lines that you won't cross, you
Right.
know? And being
Right.
spiteful towards people, like I will say after I started speaking out about her, other people were coming to me telling me their accounts and things that
Mhm.
happened to them, but they were too afraid to say anything because they knew if they did that she would go after them because she has before. Um so I just have to think at some point she's going to cross the wrong person
Yep.
and it's eventually going to catch up to her. I just have to move. Like that's the thing. Like with me now, like I'm just going to move on with my life. I'm at the point now where it has been long enough to where I can separate her from Disney.
Right.
Um, for a while there, that was my experience. That was Disney. But I can recognize now that she was not the company. Um, and that's the thing. How large is Disney as a company? You know what I mean? Like, how many people actually work there? You know,
Mm-mm.
you can't imagine that every single person that works there is going to be good, you know?
Right. Right.
There's always going to be some bad ones. It's just the problem is that the bad ones typically stay the longest.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it's a thing that happens and not really much we can do about it.
No, no. So, and again, I do get upset about how like labor relations and employee relations like backed her so much. But
Right.
like I was a cast member too. Nobody was on my side and I was the protected class. You know? So that was also that was something that was really hard for me to understand was how all these people could be backing her um while I was the one that was like losing my job for being pregnant. And literally that is what happened. They recalled me. I had I only had a certain, like, I had 8 weeks, but it ended up being 4 weeks left of my pregnancy. And even though I was working remotely before COVID, and there were two other people that were working before COVID for years remotely,
Mhm.
they refused to offer me that for 4 weeks.
Right.
Just 4 weeks.
That's
It was only through the duration of my pregnancy. That just shows me and proves me, even when I say it out loud and I go back through, if I were to go back through and read the email, man, it just proves to me that she just wanted me to quit. There's no reason why she couldn't have contacted me on Thursday and said, let's talk right now, instead waiting to 3 p.m. on Friday for me to say that I had to return to work on Monday morning or I was fired.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, she didn't want me back.
No. And I don't know, like the more that you're talking about it and like you're like explaining it, like I'm starting to wonder and think, was she jealous of you or
Oh
something?
my
That's
gosh, no. Absolutely not.
what,
No.
and that's why she was
No.
fired you.
No, absolutely not. There's no way. They literally stuck me in a corner and like forgot about me when I was working there. Like that's not, no, no, there's no way. She didn't care about me. Not at all. No,
Just made
no.
it sound like it a little bit. So I was like, there's
No,
thoughts here.
I just really think she just wanted somebody. Okay, so okay. When I was an intern on her team, I lived really far from the office. Like my drive was like an hour and a half without
Right,
traffic.
right,
So with traffic on the way home was terrible. And she was going out of town and needed somebody just like to watch her cats. But like I'm married, I have a dog at home, like I have a family. Like most interns, stereotypically, are single people with just roommates. But I was married with a dog living an hour and a half away. And she came to me and asked me if I could watch her cats. And I was just like, oh, I like honestly, I would love to, but I can't. Like I have to get home. Like I have a dog and a husband. Like, and ever since then it was weird. Ever since then it was weird.
jealousy.
Maybe
Just
she
gonna
was jealous
say it
of my
now.
husband. I don't know. Maybe she wanted him.
Jealousy.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say it. Jealousy.
Yeah. Man, it's just like so many weird, like little things like that, like pop up in my brain. And it's just like, it was just weird. It was a weird vibe. Weird vibe.
Like one of those.
She needs people to worship the ground that she walks on. And I don't buy into that life. Like that's not me.
Yeah.
Like, I maybe this is my problem. I don't know. I look at people and I see us all as equals. Um, that being said, like if Bob Iger were to walk into a room, yeah, I would sit up a little bit straighter, right? Like it is like
Right.
that's a
It's
little
Bob
different.
Iger. Yeah.
Right. Or even like, my VP or like a director or something. Like, yeah, I'm probably gonna change my posture a little bit, you know? Um, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like it's about how you treat
Right.
people, right? Like
Yes.
that's how I'm letting them see me is like I sit up a little straighter for Bob Iger, sure. But like every person that I work with, regardless of their title, regardless of their department, deserves respect. And she did not grant anybody beneath her that, except for like the managers that were on her team. There was this one guy that we always said like, oh, well, wait till you see him walk on water because like he can't do any wrong and he does nothing for his job. Like he just shows up and everyone's like, oh wow, and it's like, dude, you do nothing. Like, but like
Thinking that
truthfully though, I
he's
will say,
Jesus.
well, that's how they treated him. Truthfully, I'll say though, like I liked him as a leader. Like he was very low key, and I did like working with him. So nothing against him at all. Everything
Right.
against her though. And you
Right.
know what? Good for him for like having her treat him the way that she did. You know, if it works for you, man. It makes your life easier if your boss likes you. Clearly, my boss did not like me.
I'm telling you, man, it's jealousy.
I think it's just because I wasn't like the intern that was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Like I just came from public affairs. You know, like I just came from public affairs. And at that time, so when I worked at Disneyland, Josh D'Amaro was the president of Disneyland.
Mm,
And when I was in this job, he became the chairperson of Disney
right.
Parks Consumer, whatever the heck it is, Disney
Hmm.
Consumer Pro, whatever the heck it is. Is that what it is? Disney Parks Consumer Pro. You know what I'm saying. He became the chairperson of that, okay? So so they were doing the National Geographic show, which I like got to work on, which is really cool because my son loves
Right.
it too. So it was just like so
Hmm.
cool that like now I get to like see why I had to go through all that because he loves it. Um, but I remember he is so big on cast members and he loves the cast members. Doesn't matter what line of work you are in, especially the frontline cast members, he loves them. And there were aspects of the show that they were viewing to us that I kind of thought painted them in a bad light. Or at least didn't make them seem like they were experts. Like it was just being edited very strangely. So I did say something a little too harsh where I was like, they were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's great, great, great. And then I was like, I think he might hate it a little. Like, and they're like, everybody stopped and just stared at me. And I'll say, this was in just our team meeting. It wasn't like with higher ups or executives or anybody else on any other team. This was people that we work with all the time. So I thought like, oh, I could tell them how I feel. And having worked on videos and other productions that he had viewed, and other things that like he was working on. I mean, I created the template for launching his Instagram account.
Right.
So like I know him, you know what I mean? Like I know him. So when I
And
said this, they all like stopped and turned and looked at me. And it was just like, I was like, well, you know, and I kind of said, but like the cast member thing, like he loves cast members. And I feel like we need to just be painting them in a little bit of a better light. Um, and it was one of those things because I didn't just sit there and like, it's amazing. That everyone was like, nobody likes somebody with an opinion unless it's the same as theirs.
but at the same time, no one likes to kiss ass either, and that's what they
I
were being.
know. It's a balance. So like I'm like sitting there like, okay, this is just from my experience working with, that's the other thing too. That's what's hard too. And it's just how it is. My director at Disneyland and my VP, gosh, I loved them. They were amazing. They wanted to hear it because they need like laser focused and they need people that can see the layers of what could possibly go wrong. Um, because that's public affairs, man. Public affairs isn't looking for what's going right. They're looking for what's going to go wrong. Public relations is the fun stuff. They're the ones that get to talk about the good stuff.
Hmm.
Public affairs literally has to just look at everything and like be so like nitpicky with it because anything can be flipped around. Anything can. And the team that I was kind of working on, I kind of like it was kind of like explained to me as like they're basically public affairs for like animals. Um, but not so much, I guess. Everybody just wants praise, not feedback.
Well, then, while we're wrapping up almost here, I wanted to ask you something about because with all the Disney news that's coming out with the new Dash Pass system and everything, what's your opinion on that? Because I, for one, am a little peeved at it in a
Yeah,
way.
I feel like it's really confusing too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I so we use Dash Pass because my
right,
son is autistic.
yeah,
And I will say this. I'm glad that my husband did the intake call or whatever it is, like the little Zoom thing that they did,
mhm,
because the questions that they asked felt very like I don't know who wrote this stuff that they're supposed to say, but as a mother to a child that is autistic, it angered me beyond belief. Because one of the questions was like, oh, like, well, why do you need this? Like, why do you need this? Totally fine, totally
mhm,
normal question. And it was like, my son's autistic and he has a really hard time waiting in lines. And like, okay, well, what happens? Okay, well, that's also I feel like a totally normal question to ask. So like we told him like sometimes like he just freaks out and he'll scream, and sometimes he'll start like punching me or biting me or whatever he has to go through to like help him. The next thing was like, well, what tools do you give him to help him through that? And I'm like, okay, now that seems like a little intrusive. Because honestly, I'm gonna be real with you. Maximus has a processing disorder. sensory processing disorder too. So like while he used to wear headphones, he hates them now. And like he actually really feels comfortable in his wagon, or like his stroller, but like we don't have a disability pass for it. So it's like these tools that they're asking us for. I'm like, um, what? Like, anyways, also not very neuro affirming, right? Like some parents don't have any tools for their kids because they don't believe in that.
Mhm.
So like I just felt like that was just very intrusive. Um and I feel like that's the thing that bothers me with this stuff. It's like they always preach inclusivity, but it's like, did you talk to an autistic person when you wrote this script? Like, did you talk to anybody that might need this and how they might feel about this before you just put it out there? Or did you just assume that this was okay?
Well, not even that, but it's just like because my friend Saint Who, she has a lot of problems that like he needs the desk. He needs because he can't be around people. Like physically or else he will get very, very sick. Like he has like I think an autoimmune disease or whatever, and
Yeah.
like and his kidney hasn't woken up yet, and like he can't be around people. He just can't be around people, or else he'll be exposed.
Yeah.
And
And lines are like made for that. And that's the other thing too that I don't understand. It's like if there are like medical concerns, like if you're sitting here asking me like what my son does to help him with like if you're going to offer DAS, then offer it.
right,
If you're going to offer it, then offer it. Don't sit here and I felt the way that it was being asked, and maybe it was the cast member that was doing it. I don't know. Maybe she was just asking it in a weird way, but it made me feel like she was like, I don't know, shaming me as a mom for like not like
right.
for his behavior. And I'm like, but he's autistic. Like he has a hard time being around people. So like if you're gonna do DAS, then do DAS. Don't like it, and I get people were abusing it. I get that. But find those people and weed them out. Sure. But why are you punishing the people that need it? Like I shouldn't feel shamed when I'm telling you about my son and his disability. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right,
I that's the thing. Like he has a disability. Like and that's what it is. Autism is a disability.
right,
And uh, well, what are you doing to help? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
what tools do you have in place to help us? Do you have a quiet room that we can go to when he starts to feel overwhelmed? Like,
And that's another thing too is I don't understand. I feel like this new Dash Pass system, while I'm all for it being for people with for kids and people with autism, but where does that lead us,
yeah,
other disability
yeah.
people?
And I totally agree with that. I think that there should be like maybe different levels, or different types of passes if that's what they want to do. But
Right,
like it's not inclusive if you're excluding a group of people that don't have the right type of disability.
right. And I talked to my sister about it, and she was like, "Well, they kind of need it way more because they can't fit. Like, they aren't able to like mentally be okay with being in a line, and
Yeah. And I will say, so how it works is like we get a time return. So we are waiting in the line, but we're not waiting in the physical line.
right,
You know what I mean? So it's like if we wanted to go ride Jungle Cruise and we selected a time, the time would be whatever the timing of the wait time is. So
right,
like if the wait time's 45 minutes, we would be waiting 45 minutes, but not in the physical line. So that's the one thing that is like I think a lot of people don't understand too is that like it's not a fast pass at
right.
all.
No,
We are
no.
still waiting. We are still waiting. It's more of
Hmm.
like a virtual queue. And then when we go and we scan in, like this is another thing I've had. It's more so like this is where I have issues with guests. We go to scan the pass, and Maximus's card has to be scanned first because they have to like approve that it's like
Right.
DAS pass and like the
Mm-hmm.
timing is there. Then we can scan in our cards.
Mm-hmm.
And until that cast member clicks that thing, then other people are coming in and like scanning their fast passes and scanning their fast passes. And like
Yeah.
we are like this like group of like, you know, kind of like what it's two of us because he's holding Max and I'm holding Finn. So there's really only two people, but there's four of us. And then we have like these large groups of families that like keep scanning their cards and then we go and then they all get mad at us for walking, even though like they kind of just like cut us off.
Right.
Um, and like then instead of like letting the, you know, two people with the two small children get in front of them, they all make sure that all of them, and like I mean this just happened and it was like 15 people. They make sure that they all know like they go in front of us, and I lost it. I was like, literally, we don't have fast pass, we have a disability pass, and you are making this harder on us.
Right.
So that's something that I actually do not like about the pass. I kind of wish it was like you go to the exit of the ride and somebody was there helping, because if like that happens, then we're still waiting in a line. And then Max doesn't understand. He doesn't understand why all these people are cutting in front of him. And then he starts to freak out. So that isn't really helpful either. And it
Mm-hmm.
happens every single time we go somewhere, because like he has to scan his card first. And then like it has to process through a cast member approving it. Then we go. The people that are coming in the line have fast pass. And
Right.
honestly, I'll say too, like we do the hero pass at Legoland, and it's the same thing because it's like fast track and their hero pass. And it's like sometimes the lines do get long and he can't wait that long. And then
Right.
he goes into a meltdown. Like that just happened this weekend, and we ended up we drove an hour and a half to go to Legoland, and we ended up having to leave because he couldn't recover from it.
Mhm.
So I wish there was like a different way to get people who have DAS pass into the
Mhm.
line without interfering with the fast pass people, because everyone just assumes if you're in or I'm sorry, lightning lane. If you're in the lightning lane, everyone just assumes that you have lightning or Genie Plus or whatever. And it's like, no, like I just wish people would just be more kind, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And like that's when I get mad. And I'm saying like be kind, but I'm gonna get mad at you. But like I get mad when people aren't understanding of other people. Like they're just these
Right.
grown adults are in such a rush to get on the freaking Little Mermaid that they don't even see the family of four that are like waiting patiently with their two very young children.
I'm glad that Genie Plus changed, but also the new Genie Plus is kind of more confusing to me than
I
the
don't even know anything about it. I'm gonna be real with you. Whenever we go anywhere, I just let Mike do everything. I don't do anything.
you're like
I'm
you
just like,
control
I
it.
take care of the kids, you take care of everything else.
Like you
That's
deal with
my
it.
stress. That is my stress. I don't get it. And it changes too much.
You're like you deal with that, I deal with this.
Yep. Yep. I get the easy job. 'Cause I don't get the easy job.
Going back to the Dash Pass real quick, like my friend, and you might know him, Saint Hooch on TikTok. Saint, yeah, he got denied, and he needs this pass, the Dash Pass, because of his, you know, auto autoimmune disease and stuff. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that's the thing. I just for us, like how it works for us is I like it, but I wish there was a different way to where like the scanning thing was different. I understand why it has to be like that, but then you know what? If the cast member has to pause somebody, they need to be speaking up and pausing the next party from scanning, because my son doesn't understand that and you're still like pushing him into a meltdown. Like
right,
you're trying to help, and I appreciate the help that is helping, so we don't have to like we don't have to wait in the physical line. We're waiting
mhm,
in a virtual line.
yeah,
But to constantly let people keep going is still a hurdle that we have to get by. So I told Mike from now on, I'm just going to stand on the other side. I'm going to block it, because I'm not getting into it. And if somebody wants to fight me on that one, then please be my guest, because I am doing this for my kid. And I
mhm,
can't, that's the thing. I'm so sick of just constantly being the nice person all the time. Like,
yeah.
you know, I
I keep
can't
rooting
anymore.
for
And I
you.
think that's why, I mean, I think that's why I have Maximus. It's to help me like get out of that, you know?
I can't remember. Think it was like last live or like the live before, but I kept rooting for you to be like the mama bear. I'm like, you're a mama bear. Just go ahead,
Yeah. Yeah. I
scream.
mean, I will say we were on I have issues with like travel. I have issues with travel right now, because of how like just it's not inclusive. And like between hotels and airports, like cru- there are such tiny little changes they could make to make it 1,000 times easier for people who are autistic.
Right,
Like early check-in at a hotel, you want to tell me that they don't have rooms available at like 11 a.m. after people check out? They start cleaning. You know what I mean? If they had rooms set aside just for people who are autistic, it takes Maximus hours to get acclimated to a room. So his bedtime is 8. Okay. If check-in is at 4 and we finally get into the room and we get settled, he doesn't go down to bed until like midnight because he is so amped up and it takes him a long time to get used to that environment. And not charging people for early check-in either. You shouldn't have to pay for having a disability. And I know
right.
you can relate to that.
Yep.
Airports, it would be so easy if you just had like a quiet room. You know what I mean? Like it's just like
Mm.
these small simple changes that would just make it a more like, because like it's the thing. People say accommodation all the time. Like it's like this word that can be thrown around. Accommodation isn't a want, it's a need.
Yeah,
And that is what's really needs to be focused on when it comes to being a more inclusive everything, you
yeah.
know?
And I do want to point out something I said, something I said, or this isn't me being like, screw Disney. They're not, accepting of me and blah blah. I don't use the DAS pass. Okay, I don't have DAS pass because I just never think to get it, and I do fine without it. I'm more so talking about my friends that need it
Yeah.
and the people that do need it that aren't able to get it and are getting denied because of the stupid changes.
Do they not have like a separate pass or is it just DAS now?
It's just deaths.
They don't even have like a medical one?
No, nope, just deaths.
That's
Yeah. And I've heard stories too. I've seen like stories on TikTok about like people talking about their experience with the online like the Zoom call interview, and they're just so like, and he and I'm not saying this to be mean, to be mean or anything, because like they're just probably just training and stuff, so I understand that they don't know everything, but the way that they just don't, they feel like they I don't like they that like the people on the TikToks who are like, they don't seem to know anything.
yeah. I mean, I feel like if the woman that was asking us the questions understood what she was asking, um, I don't think I would have been upset about it.
Yeah,
But like you were literally asking parents what they do to help their child through an autistic meltdown when like what tools do you give them? Like, I'm
mm.
sorry, like what right do you have to know that?
And a
You know
lot
what I
of
mean?
people, and a lot of people I've seen too on TikTok are saying like, this just makes me not want to go to Disney anymore because I don't feel like, and I'm gonna cry because like I feel bad because I don't want to also feel like that.
Yeah.
But um, like they're not as accepting of us anymore as they used to be. If they ever were, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard because like, yeah, they had the new key of inclusivity, right?
Yeah,
And I feel like they're trying hard to make a point of being inclusive, but I don't think that they have the right people sitting at their table to make it more inclusive, if that makes
right.
sense.
Yeah.
Because I will say when I mean, before I was an autism mom, I didn't know anything really about it, you know, and like even like I did read like some of the people like who work in the I don't know if they still call them Bergs or whatever, like the Disney groups with the cast members that come in and they say things. There are people who identify with different disabilities that are on those that they are consulted with. Okay, so they do consult them for things. But I do wonder like if any of them, especially like, are any of them autistic or are they just speaking from somebody who they know, like they have a brother or a cousin who is autistic, that's why they're on this, you know?
Right, right,
Like how many times like are we actually consulting people who are living the experience rather than just assuming?
right, right. And it's just
Oh,
to
I
me,
hear
I
my baby
feel
screaming. I might have to go soon.
okay. Just one real quick point, and then and then we can wrap it up.
Thank you.
Uh,
Sorry.
you're fine. Just they Disney should really look at like people are going online now and saying like I don't want to go to Disney anymore because of this because I don't feel seen anymore.
I will say, so we go to a lot of theme parks. Okay, we live in Orlando. So like we go to Disney, we go to Universal, we go to SeaWorld, we go to Legoland. And for the most part, in terms of like for us and our needs as a family for having a child that is autistic, um, Disney does a really good job of making sure that our trip is as seamless as it can be.
Mhm,
There are other theme parks that like say that they're autism friendly and then don't act that way.
mhm,
And it really does, I feel like at the end of the day, come down to like training and how the cast members that are working handle situations, right?
mhm.
Because even if you have these people that are like having like higher ups making decisions and stuff, like you still have the front of the line cast members that are like basically saying the rules, right?
Right.
Um, I our experience I feel like has been so positive that we are able to go to Disney every single weekend
Mhm,
and for the most part have a good time. But it is still challenging. But it also does depend on like which cast members you come in contact with when you have what I like to say to Mike is like everyone is every place is an autism friendly center
mhm.
until you have somebody that is having an autistic meltdown.
Yeah,
And that really shows you which place is actually inclusive.
yeah. Unfortunately, that's true, and it's sad, but that's our reality.
Yeah. And it's, it is helping me though, because it helps me be more advocating
Mhm.
for Max and other children and adults like him because they deserve to be seen. They do. And they deserve to have experiences just like everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, and they even say that about about friendly places.
Yeah.
Everywhere is wheelchair friendly until it's not.
Yeah, it's true. And honestly, like, where were we just at? I think it was Legoland. The amount of times that like they don't have like a automatic door opener is crazy to me.
Mhm.
It happened and like in new buildings too.
Yeah,
It is crazy to me.
especially with the ADA law. Like
Yeah,
it's a law. You got to
yeah,
do that, but you're not doing
exactly.
it.
Yeah, yeah. But I do notice that. I do notice that, and it is
I should sue.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I probably lose, but I should sue.
I mean, hello, who you talking to?
Uh, well, thank you, Ashley, for coming back.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Mm, I really enjoyed having you back because I really, really loved our last interview, and I really wanted you back. So I'm
Well,
glad.
thank you for your patience and scheduling and like thank you for letting me go again because he is very unhappy right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.